you've ever been to the club? Oh, lots of you have. I know you have. So, well, if you look around, you would see most people in the room have been to the club. So there's something different about Club Continental than any other place in Orange Park or even in Clay County. It brings a certain level of class, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. So that's why I called it Soap, Style, and Sophistication. So we are going to look at some of the things that give it those names. But it's a truly interesting story. This is going to be awkward. Okay. This is not working. Okay. It's got a really slow movement on it. So, okay. So it all starts with the soap. So before the B.J. Johnson Soap Company, there was soap that was like beige and somewhat rough, but it was better than what they'd had before that. So there's going to be some evolution through the time period that the soap company runs that leads to what we consider today a creamy soap. So if you can imagine only using a soap that wasn't creamy, you can see why this is going to appeal to people. So the company that B.J. Johnson, Burdett J. J-A-Y Johnson, starts is an offshoot from, he is first in a grocery business in New York and joins up with his boss's family, and they move to Milwaukee to start making soap. The partner, I don't think I have, George Beard. The partner doesn't stay with the company all that long, and before you know it, they've renamed it B.J. Johnson Soap Company. So it starts out as galvanic soap. Doesn't that sound scary? It's like, and the whole idea of that, it's kind of strange because they're going to use things that you wouldn't want to put on your skin today, like pumice. Or we do use pumice, but not on a regular everyday basis. And things that are gritty, you just think, okay, well, it did get you clean after you rinsed it all off, I guess. But the creaminess wasn't there. So the company is going to do well. It is progressing, and B.J. Johnson's son, Caleb, is going to put a new spin on it. After his father passes, he's going to take the helm of the company. And what he's doing is different. So he is going to integrate palm oil and coconut oils into the formula, which has never been done before. So he sort of gets a patent on this new innovation of soap, and it creates something completely new. So you find these ads from the 20s. This says it's made of purest Malaga olive and palm oil. So I guess you're importing those. Malaga is Spain, as far as I'm concerned. And then it lathers abundantly, producing a rich, creamy foam which soothes while cleansing. You know that's got to have appealed to people after having that yucky soap they were using before. So, anyway, so this is going to be a profitable plan. Now this is B.J. Johnson. This is an actual ad for B.J. Johnson's company, tar soap. Again, I don't see myself washing with tar. I mean, but they say, and this is a little explanation of how it makes the surface soft and pliable. I don't know what. I'm still not interested in using tar on my skin.
There's a lot of stuff with charcoal in it now, isn't there?
There is, and I wonder how related are charcoal and tar. Don't know. Okay, but anyway, this is 1891 ad that you can still find. So it's pretty interesting how they were viewing what it takes to get clean. So now we get to the story of how that comes to Orange Park, because all that's in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So we have a situation in Florida that the weather in the wintertime is recuperative. That's hard to say. You know what I mean. And the people up north who are stuck inside breathing chimney smoke, because it's freezing. You have a choice. You can freeze or you can inhale all that ash and cinder stuff that comes out of a fireplace. Well, the problem with that is it exacerbates tuberculosis. And so B.J. Johnson, before he had come to Milwaukee, had already lost two girls. And in 1864, for that was common. Then they came to Florida, and in Florida, instead of being stuck in that room with the chimney smoke and everything, you're outside. You're in fresh air. You can actually exercise. They also have a more plentiful supply of fresh things because it is Florida and nothing's frozen. So she had the daughter that they bring when she has tuberculosis, the third daughter with tuberculosis. They'd already lost two. They have the one son that survived and didn't have that problem, but the two girls were gone, and then this new girl gets it. Her name is Carrie. And when Carrie gets sick, they get her well here. Now, can you imagine how grateful that family is and how much they appreciate Florida, the climate, all of that? Well, they're going to make this a winter thing and come every winter. So now that gets us to where Winterbourne comes from. So B.J. Johnson first gets here in 1878 on the steamboat that brought Ulysses S. Grant and Philip Sheridan. Does everybody know that story? Mm-hmm. There was a long table laid out for him, and Harper's Weekly magazine covered it, so that if you look that up, you can find it. The picture with all these fruits and vegetables all laid out on the table for Grant's visit. So, coming from the north, I guess they just were on the same steamboat. Anyway, what they found across the street from the hotel, which they loved, the B.J. Johnson family loved, was this little house. And it wasn't the big house. It was going to be built up some. It's a comfortable house across the street from what was then called Hotel Marion, or the Parkview Hotel. It had various names. So Parkview Hotel was a concoction of the founder of Orange Park, Washington O. Benedict, and the Parkview burned. It was rebuilt. It had all kinds of story. You remember that?
I remember hearing about that.
Yeah. So its location at the end of Kingsley, facing the St. Johns River, was perfect. And Benedict made it even more so by putting a 200-foot long sign facing the riverboats, so that anybody going to Green Cove Springs had to see Orange Park was here first. So anyway, and I believe it really did draw people. So anyway, the house was comfortable enough for him then, and it's going to become more and more familiar, part of the family, I would say. It gets ingrained in the family. So the word Winterbourne is coming from Scottish, and it means waterway, winter waterway. For them, that's what it was. Okay, so Carrie grows up, and she is going to marry in 1894 and convince her husband she wants Winterbourne. Can you see why? She wants the place that saved her life. I totally see why. We are starting to make it easier for people to come. We've got trains that are coming. We have still got steamboats coming, and there's more population. There's a lot of stuff under cultivation. The living here is a lot easier, and so she convinces them to come buy the property in 1906. And she's going to wind up living there until her death in 1952. 46 years she's going to live in Winterbourne. After her death, it's going to pass through a few other people's hands before eventually being purchased by the family again. So it was made larger, more elegant over time. When her brother decides to stop the business, retire, he wants to come down to Florida. She sells him 20 acres of land. So I got to tell you a little bit in the interim phase. The Fergusons became part of the community and were doing things for the community. They, as you see here, donated 26 books to the Women's Club Library, which that's a lot. I mean, back then, just even having 26 books was a lot, but donating them, that was huge. Carrie was also very outdoorsy and literate about the outdoors, and so she shared some of that with the community. And this is a passport picture. There are not a lot of pictures of this woman. So I had this not so flattering passport picture, but if she saw mine, she'd be okay with it. So this is when she was going, she's 59 and she was on her way to Europe. And there's a marriage certificate right here. This is her registering to get married. It's beautifully handwritten with where they're going and where they're from and all that. I keep seeing different spellings for Burdette, which is interesting. I guess they just guessed at it. Okay. So here we have her a little bit later. Carrie was an active member of the garden club, as I was saying. She's very literate about the outdoors. She chaired a committee responsible for writing the Constitution, and look at this, the bylaws for the Florida Federation of Garden Clubs. Is anyone in the garden club? One person? Okay. Well, look, she's helping you get started. Okay. She co-authored this book, In Florida Gardens, with another garden club woman, here, Ms. Miller Wilson, in 1924, and described, even with illustrations, what Florida's plants were like. So she didn't have to do that. You know, so I'm just saying there was a functionality. She was very interested in education, and so was her family, the rest of her family. So it was a good thing for the community. All right, this is what Kingsley Avenue in Orange Park looked like. This is Kingsley. The trees that are planted were a joint project between B.J. Johnson and Washington Gano Benedict. I sort of see them, you know, getting down on their hands and knees together and putting those trees together.
I have a picture of them doing this.
You do. I need to get that picture. Yeah. So I want you to notice this. If you look real careful, you can see there's buildings off to the side. The camera quality isn't as it is today, so it's hard to tell what those are. But those were actual homes along River Road, and you can see what they've done with the way they have planted these. You have ruts here in the road for wagons, and the wagons stay on this side of the trees, and there's room for the people to walk, if you look back here, behind the trees. So less poop to be walking in from the horses that are pulling those wagons, less mud one would expect, you know, so very practical. And so this is a contribution to the community that some people won't know about, but it is a kind of in its day, this was a really big deal. And this was not immediately after they were planted, of course. Things developed behind them and everything because the trees are pretty big. Excuse me. Oh, it's over here, okay. So, this is a road. There are different areas along where Winterbourne was being developed. So they're gonna, when the Fergusons are living in Middleburg, in Winterbourne, they're gonna build it up, and like I said, more structure. So what we have here are servant quarters type of things. So there's a shell driveway with oyster shells, and there's a 2-car garage, and then there's servant housing. These are pretty nice. If I'm a servant, that's a pretty nice place to live. I mean, I'd be pretty pleased with that, back in Florida at that time. So now when Caleb is retired and he comes to the property that is given sold to him, I guess, the 20 acres, they're gonna build a nice structure. And it's not called Club Continental, it's called Mira Rio, which means river view. Mira Rio, because one of the things they loved to do was travel, and they loved Italian architecture. So this is going to be dripping in Italian architecture. The man in the picture there, Fitzhugh Scott, helped design it along the model of a Medici villa. So pretty cool. Now, let's see if that's where I am with this. Yeah, okay. So I thought to help you understand a little bit of what was going on at that time, I would read John Massey's words. So he wrote this in the 1970s, reflecting back.
John Massey was my father.
Okay, Carrie's father, John Massey. And he had a first name that really throws you off. So, anyway. So here's how he describes the time period. There were no paved streets, no water, no sewer, electricity, no town employees. Therefore, in order to get electricity in the house, it was necessary to dig a 10-inch, 400-foot-deep artesian well. The well operated on an electric turbine, which recharged the large signal batteries that provided the house with basic illumination. The cooking was done on a very large wood stove, which was never allowed to go out. Heating was supplied by a coal-burning furnace in the basement. The entire basement, yes, I said basement. So, the entire basement and foundation was constructed of reinforced concrete 12 inches thick. I mean, when you think about that, it gets even juicier. So, he says, all the concrete and concrete blocks for the building had to be made on the premises. The building had 9 bedrooms and 6 baths on the second floor, and 3 bedrooms and on the third floor for the staff. There was also an elevator. By the time the building was completed, my grandfather was in very poor health, so that was his health. Okay. It had a 3-car garage, a superintendent's house, and an additional building across the street for the kitchen staff. There was a downstairs butler and maids, a dishwasher, 2 cooks, upstairs maids, a chauffeur, and 7 groundskeepers. The situation for supplies was such that they had to subsist with their own produce and things. So they had 2 to 3 cows, 600 chickens, both laying and eating, and a rather extensive vegetable garden. So what did you think when you heard that list of people? So we've got a dishwasher, butler, maids, chauffeur, groundskeepers. You know what, I think, excuse me? I think jobs. I'm thinking this is a lot of jobs for a local economy that could use it. And I also know that from the reports and stories that I've read, the family was in many cases pitching right alongside with them, helping do the work. And that continues today, because I've seen you out there. Okay, so under construction, pretty amazing. So yeah, that had a lot of concrete blocks.
What building was this? Which building was this?
That was Mira Rio. Mm-hmm. So this is 2141 Astor Lane, constructed 1923. It's the gatehouse. It's been used for other purposes since then, of course. It's still there. What's it being used for today?
I just moved out of it. I was living there.
Oh, okay.
I renovated it, I just rented it to somebody, but it's still a small little house.
So you've upgraded the conditions in it quite a bit.
Yes.
Like having air conditioning in there, I would think.
Redid all the plumbing. The pipes were just almost completely
Sealed.
sealed with lime.
Oh my.
We had to go through the floor, which was an interesting experience because they had 3 different floors poured in that building, which we couldn't believe when we started looking for where the floor to get the pipes through.
Wow. And this is all the way back to 23, and I don't know what the concrete was like in 1923. You had to go through that. Wow. Okay. There's a lot of these pictures were taken at a time when there was a lot of vegetation. It's not like that today, but it's harder to see the buildings because of that, but these are vintage, so. All right, now we get to the Roaring 20s, and things really get interesting at Club Continental in the Roaring 20s. This is a monkey. So, as I said about Carrie, like loving the outdoors and everything, so This is Eleanor. Eleanor also loves animals and she does gardening too. That runs in the female side of that family. So this is Caleb. He's now retired, so he's enjoying a game of solitaire. And this is Margaret and her sister Nan. Look at the getup. So in order for you to see that, I'm gonna pass that around so you can get a good look. It is pretty amazing. So a lot of fun stuff is gonna happen in the 20s. The people with money, the family friends with money are gonna come and spend money. They're gonna come and enjoy themselves. They're gonna have boats out on the river. They're going to play games. They're gonna have parties. They're going to do all kinds of things. So it's almost like money was no objects during the 20s. Look at that view. Isn't that gorgeous? And does it not look Medici Villa to you? It still has a little bit of that air to it. And it looks like money in the 20s. Now, we get these interesting guests are going to be coming to the club. This guy is famous for World War I strategies. He's German. Yes. Kind of a weird thing, I know. But he's really good friends. And so are this man who started Zenith Radio. His name is Eugene McDonald. And I know you'll know this name, Lowell Thomas. Raise your hand if you recognize Lowell Thomas. He was a radio broadcaster during the wars and all kind of major events in this country. And he was actually one of the first to do video news coverage during wartime. So he put himself at risk and did all kinds of amazing things. So these guys are, this is a naval hero, and this is a electronics guru, and then the newscaster. They all hang out together.
Yeah, he does.
What's that? Lawrence of Arabia. Oh, and I'll tell you why. They did expeditions, and Burt Massey helped finance some of those, and Burt Massey turns out to be really interesting. So they went to exotic places. I think this one might be Algiers that he's dressed for there. Anyway, places you wouldn't expect these people to go. All right. Yeah, this is another one that's kind of cool, so I'm going to pass it around too. This is Burt Massey, and then this is the Count. The Count loves to have a good time from all accounts that I read on him, and he has a mixed bag on who likes him and who doesn't like him. So it kind of reflects on Burt Massey that he doesn't care about that you know, the reputation doesn't bother him. Seeing the person instead of the reputation. This is on a yacht in the West Indies in 1929. That picture was taken. All right, so a little bit about Lowell Thomas here. So for those of you who didn't quite remember him, he's a world traveler, author, and lecturer, was born in Ohio, receiving degrees from several universities. He became a reporter and subsequently a college professor. Recently was undertaken by the Burt Massey Lowell Thomas Caribbean Expedition, the object of which is to obtain specimens of rare land and sea birds, to explore the Caribbean, and to acquire specimens for the American Museum of Natural History. A few of the outstanding achievements of Mr. Lowell are his appointment by President Wilson to prepare the historical record of World War I. It says of the World War, because there wasn't a II yet. His appointment as historian of Palestine campaign and the Arabian Revolution, that maybe what his get-up was there. And his work as a historian in the first world flight. Some amazing things. Now this is about our German friend, Count von Lucknow, was accompanied by his wife on his journey in this particular article, but he isn't usually with Orange Park Plus, and his brother Ferdinand. They sound very German. So, I forget what I have that in there for. Where is it? His name is in here somewhere.
Cindy, about what year is this?
Bahamas and.
29. 1929, it's fixing to burst. Yeah, the bubble is fixing to burst. Somewhere in that article, oh, there it is.
Because Bert Massey was with them.
Bert Massey of Chicago, president of the Palm Olive Company, who is financing the trip, also will be a passenger with his wife. Okay, so this is an expedition to reach New York in 24 days from wherever they're coming from. Anyway, another expedition. There are a number of expeditions, that was the point, that are financed by Bert Massey. All right. Okay, so this is the, this house was ordered by Eleanor Johnson, the one who was holding the monkey. Okay. And no, was she holding the monkey or was she holding the bird? Oh, the bird. I haven't got to the bird, so she was the monkey. Okay, yeah. Okay. For her brother and his bride, Ralph DeMass. Following Eleanor's death in 1939, Margaret Massey wrote to the Orange Park Women's Club to donate her mother's piano to the club because Eleanor appreciated the work they did. So that was a nice little tribute that the organization and the community could benefit from. DeMassey's daughter inherited the house in 1945 and later sold it to Dr. Kleinmeyer. Does anybody know that name? Do you know that name, John?
I've heard it, but I don't know anything about it.
Okay. He was the physician in Moose Haven.
He was also head of the monkey farm.
No, that was Yerkes.
Oh, yeah, that was your okay.
Subsequent inhabitants include Dr. and Mrs. Yerkes, Yale Laboratory of Primate Biology, and Mrs. Mandy Roger Mobley. Architectural characteristics suggest the house was about 1920. Again, in that Mediterranean style. Okay, this building was the caretaker and chauffeur's quarters of Mira Rio. The house passed eventually to the grandson of the Johnsons, John Massey. He and his wife, Frederica, also called Fricka. Okay, thank you. Decided to turn Mira Rio into a private club, and they established Club Continental in 1966. We'll talk a little bit more about Fricka in a minute. All right, during the war years, the house was used as a lodging source for people training at the bases for World War II. This is for officers. So if you can imagine, some of these officers are coming from the same kind of background that the family was from, so they opened their doors and rented rooms out to these guys. And so they could hang out like they usually did in their own hometowns, wherever that would be. They called it Azalea Manor. Sorry about that.
So was that Mara Rio?
Well,
It's saying,
no, it's the building on the corner that I bought.
yeah, I know,
It was
I'm just
amazing.
confused about the buildings.
Okay, what do you
Mara
ask?
Rio,
Mira Rio will become Club Continental.
Club Continental.
Yeah. And it's gonna be Fricka and John who do that. I know, it's a lot. That's why you have the cheat sheet. Okay. So Margaret has, I'm gonna say that's a parrot.
No, it's a macaw.
It's a macaw, okay. Well, you can't see color, so okay, I suppose. All right. So how long did they have the macaw?
It died when I was a child.
Oh, really?
It froze actually on one of our freezes.
Oh.
They didn't realize that it needed to be kept warmer.
Oh, my.
That's all.
That's sad. I can't imagine what it feels like to hold one of those. Yeah. Okay. So among the people who are going to be staying at the Azalea Manor during the war, young Joe Kennedy and Ed McMahon are names that you should recognize. This is a picture from 1942, the view of Azalea Manor.
Yeah, that's a club.
That's what pool?
Oh, that was Azalea Manor at the club, I think, when it was all,
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
confusing.
Good for you. Okay, all right, that's a great picture, I think.
Does it still look like that?
Is that the cabana at the pool?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so this is where the next slide. Yeah. All right, okay, so ponies. So the Tisdale name gets worked into the family line. Let's see where-
He married my father's sister.
That's the generation 4. Yes, okay, in green. And some of you may recognize the name Ash Tisdale, 'cause that wasn't that long ago. Okay, so these ponies were supposed to be for Ash, and they had a little pin, but he wanted horses. So I don't know how much he used the ponies. Do you?
We girls used them.
Okay, he didn't use
It's
them.
like my cousins and Lori, Diane, and I. And we had a pony cart. We would tie them up to the pony cart and ride the pony cart through Moose Haven.
They didn't have gates at that time. They
It
were
was
not
all
that
of them.
fencing. But I think that's a great view of the lawn. Okay, when Carrie Ferguson died in 1952, Winterbourne was sold and, like I said, had a various set of owners until 1980, when Fricka and John bought it back. The old mansion complete, they got the old mansion complete with inherited furnishings, turned it into an inn, and hosts weddings and parties on the riverfront. So, here's what John says. In the 1970s and 80s, the club facilities were extended with more tennis courts, a yacht basin and 85 slips, and all protected by a breakwater. A third swimming pool was added for teenage facilities, so that added to the adult and toddler pools. Well, I just imagine a toddler pool.
Baby pool.
Yeah, was it a cement pool?
Yeah, it's still
Okay.
there. It was a pond that they converted into a pool.
Okay, okay. So anyway, the property is still expanding. This is a modern picture, of course, of the Winterbourne. This is Fricka Massey. And this little piece is written by a friend of mine, Mary Jo McTammany, who has now passed. Fricka Massey loved Florida plant life, just like her mother and her grandmother, and local history, and spent a lifetime preserving, teaching, and created an appreciation for both. She came to Orange Park as a war bride in the mid-1940s to live with the family of her soldier husband, Caleb Johnson Massey, at the family's winter residence, known as it was Rio then, on the banks of the St. Johns River. After receiving her master's from Vassar, Fricka taught at Orange Park High School. Also, she helped Haitians by supporting schools and teaching in Haiti. So she generously gave this community the gift of time, energy, and attention. That's always hard for me because I can see Mary Jo saying it. Anyway, this is Junior, her son, John Jr. What's that? Okay, this is River House. In 1976, John says, a pre-Civil War cottage, which was on a Spanish land grant 5 miles south of Orange Park, was scheduled for destruction. This is Hibernia they're talking about. My wife, Fricka Massey, had moved it to the edge of the high river bank because beside the club where she restored it. 2 years later, our daughter Jeannie and her husband Bill Patterson turned it into an intimate pub to be enjoyed by the club and other guests. They built terraces, I think that's what he meant, down to the water's edge and named it the River House Pub. Friendly and relaxed atmosphere. That's what you see there. Okay, so Hibernia, this is very like Fricka from Mary Jo's point of view, so she tells me. Fricka finds out that this building is gonna be torn down. She pays $1,000 to save it. Then she has to get it moved. Breaks it into three parts and moves it here. Found out that the carpenter who built it was a man named Biggers, and he's the same guy who built Grace Episcopal. That is a really great tie-in. So he was, Biggers or his foreman might have even lived in the River House. So when I was looking into the history of the River House in its pre-Club Continental days, it went through a number of different people who lived in it. Quite possibly even have had slaves who were freed from slavery and were living on the property there, as theoretically working.
We were told it was an overseer's cottage.
Yeah, and well, before the slavery, but while there was slavery. But when the slavery was over, there were ex-slaves living in there while they worked locally. So it had a function, and it still has a function. How many have been to the River House? Yeah, a lot of you have been there, yeah. It is a great venue for parties and such. So, we're getting close. Zeliana Manor is the newest, as of this presentation, addition to the growth of Club Continental. And so this is the outside and this is the inside. What I noticed before I knew they were going to do it is I saw Zeliana Manor on a gate. I go, what? Zeliana Manor's back? So that was really cool to see. I'm so glad the name came back. It has such a nice history for me. It's a separate upscale hotel, and it has 6 suites. Is it still 6? Okay. Of various sizes and views, including a riverfront bridal suite with a separate groom suite. So meant for those weddings that happen out there. Okay. So you can sort of see what I've done here with the sheet that you have. So this is pretty much, it's easier on your sheet than on this. It was hard to squeeze it all on here. But it's important to kind of know who's who when you're looking at these street names, because some of the street names are from the family. And then of course I've got the timeline for that on the back. But I'm going to advance you to some of the interesting characters here. Got 2 really interesting family members. Natalie Johnson Van Vleck is painting Mary Pickford in this picture.
She also painted President Roosevelt.
She did. I think that's on the next slide. So she is going to make a name for herself, so much so that she is sought out. But Roosevelt happened to have been a friend of John's. He was a friend of, where did I see that? Let me see. Bert. He was a friend of Bert's.
Oh.
And I'm thinking that's where that came from. Because I wondered, you know, and the thing that makes you wonder about it, and I'll get to that in just a second. The thing that makes you wonder is that here's the picture of her painting Roosevelt's picture. Look how good that looks. And as soon as he gets it, though, he gives it away. I don't know what that means. So I don't know, maybe he has so many, I don't know. But that was in the newspaper. It said the portrait of President Roosevelt painted by Miss Natalie Johnson Van Vleck will be presented to the New York State Historical Association as the gift of the president. The presentation will be made at the concluding session of the association's annual meeting, August 25th at Chautauqua, New York. It is announced by this person at the association. She becomes so recognizable as an artist that she's in ads. That's an ad for Dodge. You could get a new Dodge for $690. And that's from 1935. She had a huge party for her daughter's 15th. So that's what this little piece was that I found in a Brooklyn newspaper. Natalie Van Vleck was held, the party for Natalie Van Vleck was held at the Ballyshire, the home of Charles Blair MacDonald. Does anybody know that name? Shinnecock Hill, Southampton, that tells you right there, New York. MacDonald is considered the father of American golf. And that's a messed up line there. He was inducted into the World Golf Hall of Fame in 2007. So lots of names get splashed around. This one is really cool. So Bert Massey's standing there. It's February 15th, 1929 in this picture. He is on the coroner's jury for the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. So these two, in the end, Bert Massey and Walter Olson ponied up their own money to have Calvin Goddard solve the crime through ballistics. There was not ballistics at this time, so the story about Bert Massey is in the forensic science books that he helped start the forensic evaluation of a crime scene.
The Chicago Crime Lab.
Yeah, Chicago. I mean, did they need it? If anybody, they needed it.
Where the soap company is.
No, that was Milwaukee.
No, they moved.
Oh,
to
now,
Chicago.
okay, yeah, Colgate, yeah. All right, there's another expedition that happens between 28 and 29, that's in that picture, but I couldn't get a good quality blow of it. So that was also a Bert Massey thing. All right, that's it. All right, I'm gonna pass this around so you can look at the St. Valentine's Day Massacre picture. These guys standing there. Okay, what do you think?